Hi, friends, welcome to SPDM TV. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I watch a lot of TV. We talk about various TV topics, reviews, and general appreciation of TV, past and new. You can follow me on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Serialized at MLHilty2452 to see what all I'm watching. This week, I think I'm ready to settle on a format for this show, and we're going to break this down into three parts. The first thing we're going to talk about is what I'm continuing. So, shows that I've watched over the last week, just going over some episode recaps. We'll talk about shows that I've finished. So, we've got three shows to finish there, and then we'll end with what I started. So, here, let's go ahead and just get into it with what I'm continuing right now, which is let's talk about episode 6 of Daredevil Born Again season 2. So, in this episode, this is post Vanessa dying, and we're expecting, or at least I was expecting, Kingpin to go nuclear, absolutely nuclear on New York City. But that surprisingly didn't happen. We see a much more subdued, dare I say, even defeated Kingpin in this episode. He's really a man who has lost everything. So we see a lot of sulking, we see a lot of sadness, and we see a lot of pain. And whereas I was expecting there to be like a big moment where he gets up on camera and says something, about vigilante justice and all of that stuff. No, the main thing that we see between with Wilson is a very interesting, intimate fight between him and Daredevil because this whole episode has been filled with Karen pretty much telling Matt that there's no way that this can end any other way with Wilson just being okay with Matt and with Bullseye just alive, I guess for a lack of a better word. And it's just very curious that Daredevil knew exactly where to find Wilson, which was in front of that painting, and they get into this just brutal fight between the two of them. So that's something that I did appreciate. I appreciated the restraint with that. I thought that their dialogue between the two of them, we haven't gotten very many moments between Matt and Wilson this season. So that was good. I like Karen kind of pushing back on Matt and saying, "Hey, Foggy would still be, you know, like Foggy may not be alive, but at least we'd have a little bit more justice than what we have now, which is they're caring for Benjamin, wounds and all, and now there's like at the end of the episode, Karen goes to this big demonstration where they're encouraging people to rise and rebel, and at City Hall, I guess, and then they're trying their best to just spark the crowd and get everyone to continue to rise up, but then you have Powell and the anti-vigilante task force. It seems like they're about ready to start shooting people, but they don't. They found out that the guy that Karen captured in like earlier on in this season that was part of the task force who's like, I want to fight back. He's gone. He gets killed by Powell because he gets found out pretty quick. So we're in a pretty perilous situation because Karen is taken by the task force, or at least recognized by the task force. But that's what we have going on now with Karen. One storyline that I'm still continue to be a little bit perplexed about is everything with that's going on right now with Heather. Her and Buck had a situation where they were, I guess, for lack of a better word, choking one another, or she was choking him, and I feel like this is his way of like getting her to unleash like the inner beast that by all accounts telegraphs to becoming the Lady Muse at some point. I'm pretty sure that if she does become Lady Muse, she's just going to be referred to as Muse. But I think we're on a very dangerous, slippery slope with her. So we'll see what happens. And then also we get our first appearance of Jessica Jones this season. It was good to have her back. Kind of wish that she was just the one that was conducting the investigation behind the scenes onto everything with the Northern Star because she figured it out pretty quick what was going on. And instead of waiting, I didn't mind that or I did mind, like, let's just be honest. I did not hate the fact that Jessica Jones was we waited this long to have Jessica Jones in it so that it kind of had a moment that mattered in it. I do love that she's got a daughter. It's cute. I'm hoping that Luke's the father, but we'll see about that. But the moments between Jessica and Matt, I really enjoyed. And then in addition to that, them fighting together, that was also great too. So I did enjoy this episode. I'm conceding that we're now kind of balancing like 50-50 split that Daredevil Born Again season 2 is, half of it's been good, half of it's been not. Still an average grade, but I'm I'm cautiously optimistic to see what will happen in these final two episodes. So we'll see what happens. Let's talk about The Boys season 5 episode 4. Again, not like the hard-hitting action moment that we were kind of waiting for with this. We're in the aftermath of Homelander, beating Ryan to like a bloody pulp. Butcher found Ryan and ended up taking him to recover, and Ryan storms off because he gets upset. And all of our crew for the boys, they go off to go find this first version of the Gen V solution. So we go to this place where hate and malice are just oozing from this facility. And it turns out it's because somebody is literally stuck to the facility and they are spewing or they're increasing the aggressiveness of individuals in the vicinity. And it's surround like this whole facility, just it's gross, it's dank, it's also surrounded by dead animals. It's also surrounded by dead people as well. So this place feels just very gnarly. But this was an episode where old things are coming to a head, and discoveries are made and people are upset at one another, and it's how we cope and move on that kind of defines how some of these conflicts get resolved. So, for example, Homelander finds out that Soldier Boy slept with Firecracker and he didn't like that. And the two of them get into an argument. And I think Soldier Boy's starting to realize that he is not as equipped to handle things with Homelander as he hoped that he would. He had a pretty good plan of trapping Homelander in a chamber with like enriched uranium or some type of toxic chemical that could debilitate Homelander for a long time. So that was a creative way to knock Homelander on his ass a little bit, but also at the same time give Anthony Starr a little bit of time to cook as Homelander, who is just going off his rockers right now. He now believes that he's on a divine mission to save everyone on planet Earth. He's even convinced Firecracker to, you know, spread the good word as he is the new messiah in a way. And I think obviously this is parroting how right-wing media, the way that they evangelize and weaponize religion, which this is happening very much in The Boys season 4, but also, or in season 5, but rather how it's working. And now Firecracker is even faced with a situation where she's like, I'm not sure I can even do this right now. But she still goes along with it because still being involved with Homelander and still being on the side of power is still better than being hunted down and being in these camps. The only part of the story that I was a little bit on the fence about, I ended up liking it at the end, but while I was watching it, I really wasn't sure, was Annie going back to see her father, which, if this had been a plot point throughout the course of the entire series, I think I'd be more invested and more interested in this and be like, oh, after years of searching for him, we finally get that. But that's not what's going on. She, just randomly out of nowhere is like, I need to go see my dad now. But I think he provided some key insight that was helpful in terms of why we fight for the people that we love, and why we need to, just continue to fight even though the odds are stacked against us. So I really enjoyed that. I love the pissing match between the Deep and Black Noir as well. I'm waiting for Black Noir. Like if Black Noir is the one that kills the Deep, I would actually be satisfied with that. So we're a little under halfway through The Boys season 5. Still a lot to go through. Still no sign of anyone from Gen V, except that very brief cameo of Thomas Godolkin, where there's just a picture of him. But other than that, no sign of anyone from Gen V. So we'll see how that pans out. Finally, we've got episodes 2 and 3 of Euphoria. And last week I talked about how what is this with season 3 of Euphoria? I don't really understand what's going on with this time jump. And this is a tale of two episodes. It's episode 2, which I actually kind of liked. Actually, it tells the story about how Rue is getting in good with everything with Alamo's operation. He is, or she is rather, handling everything at one of his strip clubs. So we get to meet some of the girls. We meet one girl in particular. Her name's Angel. She's good friends with the girl who overdosed in the first episode, and she's really upset about everything that's going on. So she spirals out of control, and Alamo says that she needs to get her stuff in order and go to rehab. But it feels an awful lot like this rehab center feels like nobody's ever going to get out of it. So I'm a little concerned that this is the last we've seen of Angel, even though she was amazing in this episode. And it was also interesting to see Rue on the other side of this. I wanted a little bit more pathos from Rue saying, boy, this sucks. Like, no wonder like my family doesn't talk to me because this sucks trying to convince someone to have to go to rehab. But we didn't, and that's fine. I'm hoping that we'll get some of that at some point. We get our first like actual storylines and story beats with Maddie and catching up with her and everything that she's had to gone through in order to become the person that she is. And Maddie seems to be one of the more well-adjusted characters post high school that I'm actually kind of curious to see what where her story is going to go. Same thing with Jules. I really liked, particularly in episode 3, it gives us some background as to what Jules has been up to, and I find what she's doing to be fascinating. I think the big sticking point for me is everything that's going on with Nate and Cassie. And episode 3 is a perfect representation of why these two should not be the center of this series, because that wedding was disgusting. It was ridiculous. And I don't understand what is going on here with like that awkward dance. And just I struggled watching that like all of episode 3 just gave me the ick for a lot of reasons. And I don't like that Rue and Maddie ditched Jules at this wedding. It was good to see Eric Dane for these 2 episodes. It was not good to see Eric Dane's character in Euphoria, because Eric Dane's character just is a pedophile and he's awful. But Eric Dane obviously was going through major health challenges right up to like the end of his life, and it bums me out to see him in this condition. But I was glad that he at least got the opportunity to be in these episodes. You see some interactions from people that you normally wouldn't expect to see interactions from again. I didn't get to see much between like them. I think the main one I was looking forward to was Maddie and Nate at the wedding, but that didn't happen because I think Nate's mom's speech was just so petty and so biting that I was like, oh God, that's rough. So and then Jules got a chance to talk with Nate for a little while, and Jules got a chance to talk with Cal for a little while. The one with Cal made me super uncomfortable. It's just how casual they can be talking about everything that happened between them. And then in addition to that, just like Nate just playing it cool, him and Jules just smoking a cigarette. outside. Yeah, it's just very weird. And then this whole story plot with Nas and Nate owing him a ton of money. I'm very curious to see how that's going to pan out because there's no way that Nate is going to be able to pay back all the money that he took from Nas. But where I'm kind of struggling with this is that the scene where he gets beat up at his home is just so over the top. They even had to like cut off a pinky toe, which I was like, ugh, I can't do it. I can't do it. Body horror, obviously, I can't do it. But all of this to say, I want to see Bishop go off because him, just he's if he's gonna be a motherfucking cowboy, I want him to actually be a legit cowboy in this instance, and I'm waiting for him to go off. He's just so calm, cool, and collected, and I want to see what he what he has in store. And then Rue getting pulled over by the DEA. I'm wondering if she's going to turn rat. Well, they're telegraphing very heavily that she's going to turn rat, but we'll see what happens. Some things here, not a huge fan of, and it is the clear exploitation of a lot of the women in this, like a lot of things going on at the strip club. Sydney Sweeney just, like, come on, Sam Levinson, like, you got to find a way to, like, from a cinematography standpoint, you got to find a way to not make it so obvious that you're slowing down the frame rate so that we can watch Sydney Sweeney's boobs move up and down. Like, what are we doing here? But I'm a completionist through and through, and Euphoria season three, as much as it's irritating me, I'm going to finish it because I hate myself. So but episode two I liked. Episode three, we have officially jumped the shark, and now I'm just waiting to see how much more crazy this season can get. Let's move on to the things that I finished. I finished three seasons of TV this past week. The first one, quick series, Malcolm in the Middle, Life's Still Not Fair. I was thinking that this was going to be two, maybe three times longer, but it was four episodes. So it is a quick watch, and I generally liked it. I am struggling to see what the point of it was, but for the most part, I enjoyed seeing some of these characters back. I think some of the things that I really enjoyed about this is how Malcolm is doing everything that he can to stay away from his family, even though he just, at the end of the day, is doing the same neurotic things that he struggled with so much with his family. So I'm I'm grateful and I'm glad that we got some nuance with that. I really liked Malcolm's daughter Leah and just all the interactions that we had with her. I would be totally down if the next evolution of Malcolm in the Middle was really about Leah, and I would be totally fine with that because Leah was a funny character. She is the same quirky mess that Malcolm is, but getting it from a girl's point of view, I think would be really great. In addition to that, Malcolm's non-binary sibling, Kelly. Boy, what I hope I'm getting that right from a pronoun perspective, but what they said during the video that Lois made for Hal, which, oh my God, that was so unbelievably touching and it was beautiful and I loved it. And the moment where Kelly talks about they came out unintentionally came out to Hal and just accepted them as they are. I was very moved by that. I do wish that we would have gotten a little more, and I'm a little curious to see if we're ever going to see this iteration of the characters again. But we'll have to wait and see. I'd be curious to see how this did from the standpoint of what's actually going on with everything behind the scenes with Malcolm in the Middle, Life Still Not Fair. It's listed as a miniseries, but lots of things get listed as a miniseries, and then they end up getting multiple season orders. So we'll see what happens. I enjoyed it. A little bummed that it was only four episodes, and again, still struggling to see the point. But man, they stuck the landing with Lois and Hal. Just the crazy, neurotic moments with this entire family. Kelly is by far the MVP of this season for me. But Leah also, again, she's I hope that she's the star of this moving forward. Let's talk about Invincible season three, which we're done with Invincible, or season rather, season four of Invincible. So, last going into the final episode, we had pretty much Nolan, the other guy, and Mark destroying Viltrum, which is a bit of a bold move. But then Mark has PTSD with going back to Earth because he assumes that they're just going to come back to Earth and destroy Earth. But actually, what happened is a much more sinister and much smarter plan where Thrag says, "This will be our home. You're not going to see where we are anymore, but we're going to live amongst everyone. We're going to repopulate and we're going to rebuild our empire." And leaves it on Mark to make that decision. Like, do you accept these terms that they will rebuild the Viltrum population, but they won't interfere with anything that's going on Earth? But as long as they're kept in peace, then he will be like everyone he loves, plus everyone on Earth will be kept in peace as well. And I thought that was an impossible choice and just a brilliant stroke of genius on Thrax's part for that. A little light on the Guardians and everything, this particularly the second half of the season, but I'm hoping that they come into play a little bit more for the next season. And then the last part, Eve. Boy, what an impossible choice for Eve to make with her baby. I was a little surprised that that was the direction that they take. First of all, my body, my choice, and she has every right to do whatever she wants with her body. It sucks that Mark didn't get, at minimum a heads up about it. He didn't even know that Eve was pregnant, but I hope that Mark doesn't push her away to a point where they end up either breaking up or having such a schism in their relationship moving forward. And I really hope that Mark doesn't hold this against her as well. But I also hope that this potentially could be a wake up call that Mark needs to be more attentive to Eve. And I didn't like how Eve was just pretty much relegated this season to being a girlfriend. That bummed me out quite a bit. Uh, and then Nolan taking Mark's mom to go find Oliver and go see him and care for him. I'm very curious to see what happens with that. They're telegraphing very much that there's potentially going to be some resolution between them down the road, which I wouldn't hate, even though I don't think Nolan deserves any type of forgiveness for what he did. But, we'll see what happens. Overall, I thought Invincible season four was really great. I think they had some really innovative episodes, particularly with the episode where where Mark goes to hell. I think this presents a lot of interesting conundrums moving forward. How much longer can this go, though? Because there's only so much of defeating enemies before we get that the Viltrumites are the great threat right now. And as they're repopulating around Earth, how long is Mark and just everybody going to stand by and allow this to happen when they just have to do something to stop them? And then with the virus being left to our new grand regent or supreme leader or whatever he's called, Alan. I think that was a stroke of genius, but I also feel for Alan quite a bit because I think that it's pretty horrendous the situation that he's going to be in. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I overall really liked Invincible season four. I did finish season two of Beef. I have thoughts on that. It's very hard for me not to compare season one to season two because they're so wildly different. And I think what struck me about season two is that the beef overall it evolved to do with things on an international scale, and I think that's way too much. I think them going to Korea and just continuing elements of this beef that was a bit much, even though I think some of the best scenes in this show were in Korea. I love the moments where they were sitting in the cells and Josh and Lindsay were talking with one another and Ashley and Austin were talking with one another. I think the conversations that they had were uncomfortable and they were profound and they were lovely. I think the messaging that they're saying about love in just multiple different ways, I think is it doesn't make a lot of sense, but also it doesn't change the fact that Oscar Isaac just gave me the feels with with his decision. You can see it coming from a mile away, but that doesn't change the fact that I think that he kind of understands now that this is one way to show love to somebody. I don't think it's the only way to show love to somebody, but I think it's pretty great. And then in addition to that, Ashley as a character just goes completely off the rails. I think they could have toned her down just a little bit in order for us to see that, despite the fact that Ashley is, going through a lot emotionally right now, that doesn't change the fact that Ashley let Burberry out on accident, of course, which causes the coyote to get Burberry. In addition to that, the blood in the orange juice. I can't. I don't like that. I think Austin as a character went through a lot of growth and development. And I think him just, in essence, just giving up and succumbing to the fact that the way that Ashley said that, like, hey, you don't even know anything about Eustace, or Eunice, rather. Eunice. Eustace is the kid from the Chronicles of Narnia. But Eunice, where he doesn't know or he doesn't understand anything about it. Like he doesn't even know her, and Ashley has convinced him that, like, hey, I'm the devil you know, and at least you know my stuff, and we accept each other for who we are. And that type of love is just feels so incredibly toxic. And I I don't think that any of these couples should have stayed together at the end, but it doesn't surprise me that Austin chose the lesser of the two evils, where he just, he got a kid, he got a family. They're like pretty much Ashley and Austin end up right where Josh and Lindsay were around this time. So this season of Beef was crazy. I didn't like it as much as season one, but that doesn't change the fact that there were moments that really got me. And I think what this is saying about wealth and the disparity between the wealth classes, and then what this is saying about intergenerational dynamics. I think one of my favorite jokes, in addition to the letterbox scale, where they talked about how the letterbox scale has messed up everyone's perception of what pain management is. But I think the thing that I liked so much better, or like I liked a lot more, is when Austin and Ashley are talking about how they could save money. And one thing that they could do is cancel the app that tells them how to save money and how to manage money better. That is such a Gen Z coded thing that I find that hilarious. The Everything that was going on with Chairwoman Park, uh, honestly, I could have done without that, but overall, I'm glad that this didn't connect at all with season one. I think that keeping them as separate as possible, I think was really good. I was half expecting that Lindsay would have married Stephen Young's character from season one, but I'm glad that that didn't happen at all, and that these are two truly standalone seasons. I would bet anything right now that at minimum this is going to be nominated for best anthology series, and most of the cast is going to get some type of acting nom for the work that they did. And as of right now, I think in estimation, at first I was, when I finished this, I was like, I love this show. This is my favorite show of the year. But I think I'm going to bump it down slightly in favor of other shows like The Pit, in industry and different things like that. Finally, I only started one show this past week, and that was I watched the first four episodes of Running Point on season two on Netflix. This I feel like this show is tailor made for someone like me because it checks two very important boxes for me. I love workplace comedies, which this is definitely a workplace comedy, and I love basketball. So this show is tailor made for someone like me. They make jokes that I just find so incredibly funny. This is spoofing the Lakers like to a T, And I really think that Kate Hudson's doing some pretty good work here. So I really enjoyed everything with it. I don't understand how this is going to continue past this season. And I'm not even halfway through this season, but I am enjoying it quite a bit. I think some of the storylines involving Dyson and his evolution to becoming like the best player on the team. I think that's going to come to a head with their 16-year vet who is like starting to feel a little overshadowed and everything like that. Marcus, that's his name, Marcus. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. I think that who is that? Cam, who is Justin Theroux's character. I am waiting for something to happen with him where he's going to get caught and then he's going to get voted out. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But at some point, I'm over it. I can't. There's only so much meddling that Cam can do before eventually I'm going to be like, what are we doing here? Please stop. I'm bummed that Allie went to Toronto, but it was for money, and I think what she said was absolutely true. It's not just about money or title, it's about value at the end of the day. And she didn't feel valuable enough. She's going to come back to LA at some point. I guarantee it. Because keeping Brenda Song and Kate Hudson apart just doesn't seem like a good idea. I still love Jackie as a character. I'm still really enjoying what he brings to the table. And then I really like Ray Romano's character, the coach. I love the new coach. I want more of that. 4 episodes in, I want more of that. So we'll see how that pans out. But all right, that's all I'm watching right now. What do you think? What do you think about any of the shows that I'm watching? Let me know in the comments below. Any recommendations, give me a shout, let me know. But that's going to do it for this episode of SPDM TV. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew, wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Shout out to High Flyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. If you've got any marketing, logo, or brand standard needs, contact them at highflyercreative.com. Check out the other shows on our network. We've got a lot of great content. I'm really proud of the work that everyone's doing. So please check out the other shows and support the SPDM crew. And finally, if you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Until next time, happy watching, friends.